Okay, hi, and welcome back to Holistic Healing Hour with Nurse Colleen. And today my guest is Sonia Singh, who is a psychotherapist. Would you like to tell us more about yourself?
Yes, well, first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me on your informative new platform. I'm excited about all the things that you will be offering on this platform and excited about our conversation today because it's definitely essential. So a little bit about myself. So I am a psychotherapist, well versed in various alternative therapies. I'm a forensic therapist, so I utilize forensic methods, but also alternative methods. One of them being specialized or certified in treating individuals with psychedelic medicines.
Mhm.
So I have been practicing with psychedelics since I've been practicing with cannabis, which has been for over 10 years. Um, I also write for Rolling Stone. I'm a contributor that contributes to a leadership platform that is aimed at helping other people in leadership learn more about psychedelics, learn more about how to go along a similar path that I did by providing alternative therapies that are very much needed in our community. And aside from that, I'm a daughter, a caregiver, a lover of adventure and fun.
Awesome. And you have a bunch of letters behind your name. Can you tell me what those all stand for?
Sure. So I am a PhD candidate, currently completing a tract of clinical psychology at Columbia University. I've been taking off for the last 3 semesters, but will be returning to complete my degree. Um, Thank you. I'm a master's level therapist at this time. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so the acronym is LCSW. I'm also a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. The acronym is LCADC. I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey with jurisdiction in New York and Pennsylvania. So those are my surrounding states, as well as Delaware. Can't leave Delaware out because I'm definitely licensed in Delaware too. And I've been practicing psychotherapy for the last 16 years since I finished my grad school program when I was a young mid 20-year-old. And I got into the field of addictions because the people around me, the people that are very close to me, were either struggling with addiction, developing addictions. And I kind of seen that kind of burst wide open in I would say my teenage and young 20-year-old some years. Because back then a lot of my friends were becoming addicted to whether it was alcohol was a major problem. Low key, people were becoming addicted to opiates and masking it, but having it definitely self-destruct their lives slowly. And because of personal experiences I had within my family, my nuclear family, that surrounded addiction, I didn't understand addiction. I didn't have any family members that prior to that time that were ever presenting any addictive personality traits. However, when I was growing up, I think that growing up as a first generation Punjabi American woman born in New York City but raised by two immigrants, I think that like acculturating to the American lifestyle at times included the things that are normal in our society that's not normal in other places, like having liquor stores in every town, several liquor stores, and having bars everywhere. Where you go to some countries and literally like 30, 40, 50 miles you have to go to find a liquor store. Doesn't mean they're not populated. They're overpopulated in those countries. They just don't celebrate alcohol like we do. They don't accept alcohol and what alcoholism could lead to in many other countries. Nevertheless, a lot of my friends were, you know, like becoming increasingly subjected to lifestyles that were predisposing them to risky lifestyles that included drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
So I've seen it. I dated a college football player, kicked off the team because he just was coping with his issues and stress with alcohol. Why? Because I went to a Big Ten school. I went to Rutgers University. And at Rutgers University, there's a big party scene. People have
Mm.
binge drinking. Like I grew up in the era where, we go to Rutgers parties and, there's a keg, there's kegs everywhere, right? We're playing beer pong and, we're always like incorporating alcohol in some way, shape, or form when we're not in class, right? But with that being said, some people are predisposed, and I found this out when I studied addictions in my graduate school program, that some people are predisposed with a genetic disposition that makes them more susceptible to developing addiction. Like, say, for example, if a friend in your family, just like diabetes or cancer or certain other health conditions, right? If you have a history in your family, right, you also have a genetic disposition. So it's always advised by healthcare professionals that you take good care of your health, especially certain uh, uh, preconditions that can lead to conditions that your family members might have. Um,
Right.
so with that being said, I grew up as a first generation in between New York City and New Jersey, went to Rutgers University, um, became a therapist because it was my calling. Like I actually thought I was going to be a lawyer. I was pre-law at one time. I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. Hated bio, no offense to the nurses, but like had a hard time in bio. Bio was hard for me. Bio 101, 102 at Rutgers University was like one of the first courses that future medical doctors have to take. And it was hard. And I
Mhm.
was like, am I going to be able to take these courses over and over and over again in different forms? This is going to be torture. So with that being said, I kind of, found my way like through the first like maybe year and a half of college and found my way into social work, which I fell in love with. It came natural. Like I liked helping people. I loved like case management. I just loved being resourceful and skilled, and going the extra mile. So I initially was a medical social worker that worked with the elderly because my dad is a little older. My dad had me a little older in life. He was in his 40s. So, um, I was coping with, having a senior citizen father when I was like still in my 20s
Mhm.
and dealing with a senior citizen father that had a lot of health issues too. So I was really interested in understanding elder care, being a gerontologist, understanding gerontology, which is the study of mature aging and, what happens to aging individuals when they get older. So, from that work, I like found a calling in therapy because I kind of was medical social worker, but like, kind of like doing things that I'm not supposed to do on a busy floor where I'm supposed to be going from bed to bed at a subacute rehab where I'm like, oh no, I'm sitting down, I'm talking to them, right? I'm using those like early skills that I had and I decided to take an opportunity, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, where it was advertising like a dual scholarship opportunity at Rutgers University. Rutgers was my alma mater. I applied for their master's program and wanted to continue my master's degree. And there was this really interesting um, addiction counseling training program that was being sponsored by the state of New Jersey and SAMHSA.
Mm.
Let me see if I could get into this. And
Right.
I was really interested in it because I wanted to learn more. As I shared, I was young. My friends were partying. My friends were going through all types of traumas, and they were getting addicted. I seen family members heavily drinking and how destructive that was. It's not just the DUIs and the babies that are made through the chaos, it's the legal issues, it's the not being able to go to work, it's changing your behavior, the way that you take care of your health, the very poor health issues, and then all the kind of issues like compounded on one on top of the other, makes it really hard for people to escape the cycle of addiction.
Mm.
And as a young girl, like having someone in my family that I was close to all my life that developed an addiction late in their teens and was going through a really tough time in a really traumatic tract. I was really compelled to like learn more and see like, can I get into this program? I got in. So I did a dual major. I got it done. I came out into the field of substance abuse and started working in my local county mental health facility in their drug rehab program. So basically, if you caught a case, like a drug related case or addiction related case, and you were going through drug court specifically,
Mm.
you basically had to come to my program and you came in my groups. You came to your individual therapy sessions, and I might have been your therapist, right? With that being said, like I did that type of work for a while. And at that time, marijuana was about to become uh, approved for medical.
And when was that? When was it approved in New Jersey,
It
New
was
York?
approved in 2014.
Okay.
So it was about 2013 I started exploring like what a cannabis program would look like.
Hmm.
Because my background is in social work.
Right.
I started off as a social worker. So those unique social work skills that I had like brought out that, I need to create a program that serves the needs of the community.
Uh-huh.
Because I've seen a lot of people going to my program, catching legal cases because of marijuana.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were self-medicating trauma and anxiety.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I brainstormed and I was like, there got to be a way that we could help these people. It was still very taboo. People, a lot of therapists were like, still judging, cannabis consumers. And um, I saw an opportunity for me to start a private practice because I got my clinical licenses and I was like, time to throw up a shingle, but what are we gonna do with it?
Right.
And that's where I kind of concepted the idea to start a medical marijuana program and help PTSD and anxiety sufferers that were eligible for medical marijuana find an easy pathway to access it. And then my program kind of became very popular at that time. Um, I was being published as the cannabis clinician, and I just, did a lot of advertising, a lot of influencer advertising as well. A lot of celebrity clientele. My first celebrity clientele were celebrities that were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna see you from my medical marijuana card." And it was like this profound turning point in my life where I was like, wow, like, I guess I'm kind of like doing things now. Because that's how I felt. I felt like I was doing something groundbreaking and
Yeah.
definitely was doing something that was helping so many people,
Right.
people that were self-medicating. So my campaign was focused on helping people that were self-medicating and
Mhm.
wanted to legalize their use. And I
And
helped legalize their use.
overlap with addiction because you're treating addiction, and some people are afraid that maybe cannabis leads to addiction or cannabis is addictive. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I guess cannabis was always like referred to as the gateway drug. I believe even in Rutgers, like it wasn't like, I read books that said at Rutgers University that said, cannabis is a gateway drug. But there was always information that suggested that, the lifestyle that surrounds cannabis use can place somebody in situations where they're going to be in high risk situations, exposed to it, to other illicit substances. So that was always like the discussion around it, right? Where you're more likely to use an illicit substance if you're smoking cannabis, right? That's not so much the case anymore in
Right.
legal states, because remember when it was federally illegal on all levels and there wasn't any before there were medical marijuana programs, it was all like, an illegal thing. Like you would get in trouble, you would go to jail for it. It was it was a very serious crime.
And
Um,
it's often dealing more than just cannabis. So, they had things around which you were exposed,
exactly.
whereas when you go to just
Exactly.
medical marijuana or just cannabis.
Right. It was
Yeah.
like at one time when you were buying cannabis, you were buying it exclusively from the black market.
Right.
So, with addiction, harm reduction played a big role in my early programming because I was like, wow, I'm being really radical. I always been one of those type of people, I guess, that like to, either be the first to do something or let's do the thing that, people are gonna be like, oh my God, I can't believe she's doing this,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's always been me. But that's just me. And I did that with cannabis. But still, there was a need to make sure that the delivery of the services were uh, ethical,
Mm-hmm.
that they were safe, and that it was backed by some type of evidence-based material. Because in my profession, that's what's needed to provide any type of intervention, is that you have to make sure that you're mitigating risks and that you're not kind of just creating like your own formula to doing something. And with cannabis, I knew there was going to be a lot of eyebrows raised, like, what is she doing? How is she doing this? Um, Started off with like kind of when we engaged clients, it wasn't just here's your recommendation, my doctor's going to certify you, here's your medical marijuana card. That wasn't the process. There was like different sessions that they had to go to, but we still tried to streamline it as much as possible because many medical marijuana doctors were just really capitalizing off of clients, just patients, making them go to like excessive sessions, saying, "Oh, you have to come to meet me 3 times, but insurances don't cover it, so it's $550 a session."
Yeah. Crazy.
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. And so like we started off with a flat, like we were like honestly, we catered to people that could afford 250.
Yeah.
Can you afford 250? Then you could come to our clinic.
Yeah.
And the process, right? There were phases. We tried to do the phases either within one office visit, or it would be one office visit and one telehealth with the doctor. But what we did is initially we provided a assessment and evaluation to see if
Mhm.
they qualify. So just a standard mental health evaluation. But then also an addiction assessment
Mhm.
to see if they have any history, excuse me, history with any substance abuse issues, to see if there are any presenting concerns that would make this person like not a good candidate, because it's not for everybody. Like some people just, need to have more stability, you know, uh, at the foundation. They need to do the groundwork before they're able to use certain medications.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's not for everyone. You do have to show a certain level of stability, and ability to be able to like use cannabis in a way that's not risky. Like if I feel like, hey, you're just gonna be smoking all day long and this is gonna keep you from doing other things that you need to do, because because of your history of substance abuse and how that looked. Because just because you had an addiction doesn't mean that you're gonna sit around and do that, right? It's based on each individual. Everybody's different. Everybody's addiction is different. So, there was definitely an assessment evaluation, but then there was a whole education session.
Uh,
And the education session was pretty much like Cannabis 101 for medical marijuana and your mental health,
Right.
where we educated them about the symptoms of their mental health first. That was
Mhm.
primary, because what are we treating? We're treating your mental health. So bringing awareness to the specific symptoms that we're treating.
Were
And
there any diagnoses in particular that were, what type of mental illnesses were you treating with cannabis?
with cannabis, just PTSD and anxiety, because those were the eligible approved conditions for for the state medical marijuana program. And other than those two, depression is another condition that people can treat with cannabis, but it's just not approved in many states because it's kind of risky. Like depression can also show up in people that are mixed diagnosed that you are coping with bipolar and vice versa,
Mhm,
right? And then it's harder to treat um, depression with cannabis. So the methods
mhm,
are different.
mhm,
But with anxiety and trauma, it's low risk and it's definitely very beneficial. But primarily people that are new to medical marijuana need to understand dosing and frequency. They need to understand strain science after they understand what they're treating, right? Because it's like, okay, with anxiety, what are we treating? Excessive worrying or intense nervousness, maybe even panic attacks if they're having like a very extreme experience and they're having palpitations and just the physiological and mental symptoms. Like it helps self-soothe and calm those symptoms. With trauma, it also like serves as an emotional coping tool
mhm.
because it helps aid in, that healing process to aid in healing some of the symptoms that are created from trauma. Sometimes it's recurring thoughts that are unpleasant.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's reliving memories and images.
Um,
Sometimes it's like avoidant behavior.
mhm,
Um, it might like all that, right? Like creates internal like chaos.
mhm.
And it's painful for people that live with trauma. They hold on to it. Like you and I cope with trauma. Everyone copes with some type of, I mean, I can't be like almost 40 years old and not have been through something. But to everyone is different degrees, right? Some people have been through really, really terrible situations or traumatic situations that have affected their personality, how they feel about people, how they deal with people, how they socialize with people, that's all affected.
Right.
So with the counseling with cannabis, that's usually, what's primary is harm reduction strategies start with education.
Mhm,
And then giving them tools. So there was a medical marijuana log or journal that I provided my clients, and it really just helped them like learn the stuff, learn how, like I said, cannabis 101, learning how to use strains, understand and identify with the effects of those strains, the amount that they used of that strain, and then they kind of journal their experiences and then they have like, things that they circle, the effects, physiologically and, mentally, and giving them tools like that helped individuals that were looking to use cannabis in a safe and constructive way actually do that. So yeah, so that's a little bit about how I got started and then got into cannabis. I would say it was just like by opportunity. I was an addiction therapist. I had this very unique education that I got at Rutgers, and I had these unique experiences working in county drug treatment programs where everyone was court mandated. So it wasn't like they chose me, they had to go, right? They caught a case. So because of that, I think those experiences early on made me feel like maybe I was the one to be that outlier at that time.
mhm,
And
mhm.
that's how it started. And then it evolved into psychedelics over time, right?
Yeah,
Um, I don't know if you want to talk about that right now
absolutely.
or
Yeah, it'll flow. And I want to say that, we met at Canadelic, which I one of, one of my events is where we met, and we had the
yeah, I heard such great things about your event. And When I was initially brought to your event, um, you struck me as someone that was like very vibrant, energetic. I remember your hair, I remember your smile, but more so, I remember the conference and I learned so much. My first Canadelic that I went to in 2022, that was within the first 2 years that I really dived in hardcore to my psychedelic certification and education as a psychedelic clinician. So
Right.
it was right on par with everything that I was pursuing at that time, because I kind of evolved from being a cannabis clinician, being on the news. I was on Channel 9 promoting my medical marijuana drives. I did medical marijuana drives that placed me in the newspapers and got me a lot of media attention. And it was basically like what I was doing was hosting or facilitating medical marijuana drives for PTSD and anxiety sufferers. So if they were a mental health sufferer and they were illegally medicating themselves or self-medicating themselves, or they were like they wanted to start an alternative treatment path, we basically had events set up for them to come and they got evaluated. They seen my doctor, they got an education session, and it was all set up like, okay, we're gonna have them in this room and then in this room and in this room. And, it just became very popular where, like, I think the first medical marijuana drive, maybe like 20 people showed up. The last medical marijuana drive that I had, it was like over 200 people.
Wow. Wow. That's how it goes, right? You have to start somewhere.
And then COVID happened.
Oh, wow.
And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
COVID happened, we went telehealth, all telehealth. And we were still helping individuals. Everything was EHR then, electronic healthcare record. And, we're like, we're gonna, continue this. The last drive that I had was a telehealth drive.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, that was in March of 2020. We had a drive scheduled.
Yeah.
And because it was like the last week of March,
Right.
because COVID just started, and I had all these prospective clients that already signed up for the medical marijuana drive. I was like, I have to, I gotta like figure out how I could still do this drive. So I kind of set up like a whole telehealth practice at that time. Um, Within like maybe the like 2 days.
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
days, we had a whole telehealth business set up. And it was very successful, but then, um, there was a change in legalization because recreational law passed for cannabis where I'm from.
I
And then people were like less interested in learning how to use cannabis constructively. They're like, screw you, lady. I'm going to the dispensary. My bud tender will tell me everything that I need.
It's no longer medical. They don't need to worry about it anymore.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So at one time, it was something that people were very interested in. And not to say that people aren't interested in it, but people are more likely to go and explore on their own.
Yeah.
And there's lots of resources and tools that are available now versus 2015, 16, 17.
Hmm.
18, 19, 20, right? When my practice, my medical marijuana program was thriving. Things have changed
Yeah.
and lots of resources. Dispensaries even have their own resources that are very similar to what I offered back then. Um, so, there was a natural progression to offer different type of services. Then I got trained to facilitate cannabis assisted psychotherapy where essentially we're utilizing different strains, specific strains, where we're creating psychedelic blends with our
Yeah.
cannabis.
Wow.
We're having more group sessions where we're kind of focusing intentionally on specific things. Um,
Hmm.
and then they're kind of guided through a series of different somatic therapies where they're using cannabis and the experience itself, like the psychedelic experience, comes from the strain combination.
That's
Um,
brilliant.
Cannabis is much different than psychedelics.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely wanted to get into a little bit of that because, um, people that seek plant medicine from a health perspective,
Hmm.
usually treating one of four things. So, as I already talked about, anxiety and PTSD, trauma, right? Those are the main reasons why people go seek cannabis. But
Right.
also, the top four for psychedelics includes these two, plus depression and spiritual growth.
Interesting.
People go through different stages during their human development, right? Depending on what stage of human development they are, there's always like uh you know there's there's uh always despair that comes with certain stages.
Hmm.
And people seek out spiritual growth at any stage of their life for different reasons. So they seek out tools that can help them do that work, that can
Hmm.
help them uh, shift their perspective, see things differently. They're looking for growth, right? But they're looking for growth within themselves.
Right.
Naturally, that could happen over time, or people use psychedelics to be
Right.
able to aid in creating those experiences.
Yes. Yes.
So that's one thing about psychedelics that's different exclusively from cannabis, where cannabis is always like used in a health context to be able to treat those, like to create like more of a somatic, like emotional release,
Hmm.
while like psychedelics are used to kind of get to the root of the problem.
Right. Right. I think psychedelics more deal with the root, where cannabis is still kind of like a band-aid.
Right. Like cannabis is maybe something that could be used in like the integration plan, like
Hmm.
after psychedelics are used to be able to cope with the releases that happen afterwards.
Hmm.
Because using psychedelics, of course, is a pretty profound release.
Right.
But the stages and the things that occur after a psychedelic experience is what cannabis can help treat. But yes, exclusively they're like two different things. One thing that you wanted me to discuss was like the misconceptions around cannabis and psychedelics.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I wanted to talk about what recreational use looks like,
Right.
because in many states, we've seen recreational use of cannabis, but also in some states, recreational use of magic mushrooms or psilocybin, right? And some states, so where the state that I'm in, has been passing legislation for a medical use only
Sure.
psilocybin program.
Wow.
So it's going to be very much just a therapeutic use. They don't call it a medical use actually. Their language is therapeutic use.
Huh. Really
So
interesting.
it's
So there's
therapeutic use. You have to, it's like basically like how getting a medical marijuana card once was. You have
right.
to get certified and registered, and you will be able to most likely grow, because I feel like I don't know how they're going to handle that part in New Jersey, like where they're actually going to be able to buy it from. If
Hmm.
it's going to be that big of an industry for them to have all stages of the licensing, from cultivation to manufacturing to retail. But what I've seen so far happen is that they're looking to adopt home grow for psilocybin.
Wow.
That's
You have
happening in a lot of states because it's easier. It's not, think about it. The government wants to make money.
right.
It is what it is, right? Cannabis, there's a really large business around cannabis, right? Psychedelics are very promising, but psychedelics are easily misused,
Right.
right? Sometimes certain psychedelics, you don't need that much for you to have um disassociative experiences,
Right.
right? And that could be really risky for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um,
Which ones are most misused?
so ketamine, It's
Hmm.
commonly misused. Psilocybin is commonly misused. I find that like other substances are used in more spiritual contexts, in self-growth context. Like it's not as common that in a treatment setting you'll come encounter someone who totally misuses ibogaine or ayahuasca. It's more common that people will misuse psilocybin because it's more common.
Right. Right. Right.
And people, there's not enough information out there for people to really understand that. Like, even though we're living in a culture today where we see mushrooms everywhere, right? We go to TJ Maxx and I'm like, since when do they have mushrooms everywhere? I'm going to Home Goods and it's like, I'm obsessed. Like, I love mushrooms. I actually, because in the office, we kind of like set up a whole shroom area. So, a
Right.
little psychedelic area, right? So, I mean, but that's the culture that we're living in where um, psychedelics have hit the mainstream hard with mushrooms.
Right. Right.
But the thing about mushrooms, like cannabis, is not going to lead you to having blackouts, disassociative experiences. It's not as risky. Um, should you drive while you're high on cannabis? Probably not. You're probably going to drive too slow, right? You're probably going to be too paranoid, right? In that context,
Yeah.
it's probably not a good idea for you to use, it's not a good idea for you to use machinery of any type.
Right.
With psychedelics, though, the experience is much more intense, right?
Yeah.
The medicine is stronger, right? So I'm just going to use psilocybin as an example because psilocybin has become so popular. And
Mm.
a lot of states, including my state, I'm sure like Florida will follow, will have uh therapeutic use
Yeah.
programs.
I hope so.
They're trying to incorporate the home grow with the programs. There'll be a specific class that they have to take to be in the program and be able to, you know, uh, grow, right?
Interesting.
And that's being developed, I believe, like right now.
Mhm.
But that's what a lot of states should expect.
Yeah.
Um, but the message is like they're not party drugs, and I wanted to emphasize on that it's psilocybin's getting popular because opiate addiction is a really big issue.
Mhm.
And I've always been a holistic therapist for many years. When we say holistic, it means like treating the whole person,
Right.
right? Looking at all aspects of a person and how they're affected. Um, I started off in an industry where we were trained to provide psychiatric referrals
Mm.
because, psychologists, psychotherapists, we're just here to provide treatment and counseling,
Right.
right? The psychiatrist
Yeah.
is going to conduct the evaluation to prescribe medicine and medicine only. Their scope of practice is medication.
Hmm.
So, in providing them my early clients like medication, and
Yeah.
maybe 50-60% of them hating their medication, not wanting to take the medication. I don't like the way that it makes me feel. I feel worse when I'm on it. I'm more depressed. Then we're kind of, then like treating other symptoms, right? Then we're creating a whole treatment plan to be able to manage their medication. So that's called medication management. I'm monitoring their medication, the effects of it every time I meet with them. But then at the same time, we're like managing new depressive symptoms, we're having new anxiety symptoms. I'm like, but we wasn't treating depression and anxiety. So why is this coming out now? So I noticed that I found that a lot of individuals that were using opiates, they were kind of just fed the opiates because that was the option that was available to them, right?
Right.
Psychotropics were the options that were available to them. So now we see this whole like shift in people looking at other options
Right.
and psychedelics being a promising option.
Mm.
And psychedelics also kind of like feeding into plant-based trends and being like being a plant. I think like it attracts a lot of people that are curious.
Mhm.
to learn more about psychedelics.
Right.
But a lot of a lot of bad things can happen if they're not aware of the effects early on, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so some people that have no experience with using substances, no substance tolerance, can use like a very little bit
Yeah.
and have a very profound experience.
Yeah.
And when I say profound, the profound looks differently for everybody.
Mhm.
For some people, they're, you know, like, seeing imagery,
Mhm.
right? They're, having like imagery flash in their mind, eyes closed, eyes open, right? They're seeing things that, are distorted, that, um, look brighter, right? More vivid.
Right. Right.
And, that also changes their emotional state.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, like, taking substances that cause that type of reaction could be scary to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, some people, like, develop addictions when they're really young and they're partying where they want to be turned up and like have blackouts, and that's very unsafe.
Right.
And most mature adults over 25 don't want to have nothing to do with anything like that.
Right.
But
Right.
we still want to see how this could benefit us. A lot of conversations are happening and surrounding psychedelics, but I think that people can easily misuse them. They're
Mhm.
in edible forms, like psilocybin isn't always like in the mushroom form. Psilocybin also, there's a lot of different strains, a
Yeah.
lot of different types. Like,
Mhm.
not as much as cannabis, right? It's not like it's like thousands of thousands different subtypes, but there's a lot of different kinds, and a lot of people cook them. They put them in their tea. They, create chocolates, and that's when a lot of misuse can happen if not dosed correctly.
Right.
And then people underestimate the power of these little mushrooms.
Yeah. And some strains are better for different
Like
things. Like,
this much and like have a profound effect.
and sometimes the smaller ones have more potency than the bigger ones. It's really,
Depending on the strain. Yeah. I had a client tell me a very scary experience on how they were walking through the airport, and I don't know where they were, but they had a shroom, and they were like, somebody gave them a shroom and they didn't take it. And then they were about to get to the airport and they said, I have the shroom. I don't want to just throw away the shroom. I'm just going to take this shroom. But clearly, like, they didn't really understand and they underestimated what they were doing and taking at that time.
yeah.
So as this individual like goes through um uh like baggage check and everything and is like checking into the airport, they start to initially feel the onset of the symptoms where, they're starting to see things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they told me as they were going through TSA, they couldn't see. And I was like, Sonia, I couldn't see. And I said, I mean, I could imagine. I was like, it sounds like you took a really strong one.
Yeah, yeah. Even microdosing sometimes it's just I don't like when I feel a microdose and then I have to like lay down for a minute. Like I want to start doing it again, but I'm thinking I'm gonna wait till the nighttime because sometimes it does affect my work day.
Right,
Mm.
right. And and um I think that it's more common with psilocybin than with cannabis.
Right, right.
Like, there is a way, like if you take too many edibles, like a high THC edibles,
Done
like
for
you're done, right?
probably.
Um, but the thing about psychedelics is that some of the scary things about it, right? Might deter people or discourage people from experiencing the positive effects and benefits that it brings.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to address integration. I mean, a lot of people think maybe I'll take a psychedelic and it'll be a magic pill and everything's going to be better, but that's not the case, correct?
Yeah, because, I don't think a lot of people know and understand what to do after they had that experience.
Hmm.
Depending on person, like they could see their traumas. They
Hmm.
might see their life.
Right.
They might see things from a different perspective that they've never seen before. But then after you see that, like there's been times where in the clinic with ketamine, I'm going to give you some ketamine examples now. Because those are so as at this time, because of the legal limitations on psilocybin, the only psychedelics we're practicing with is ketamine in the state of New Jersey. And
Hmm.
then for alternative medicines like uh psilocybin and ibogaine and ayahuasca, we have curated retreats, or I've been facilitating and promoting and being a part of these
Right.
retreats that I know that you're also a part of as well, that are around the world in legal jurisdictions, because we are licensed professionals. But with that being said, in a ketamine context, there are times where individuals have this psychedelic experience, and then they're sitting there looking like they look like they're more traumatized
Right.
because
Yeah.
they're like, whoa, like, what did I just see?
Right.
What was that?
How do I?
Right. And it's like they don't know what to do. Or some of them, like there was this one girl, one of my clients, like, she had, so like, uh, repressed material
Hmm. Hmm.
commonly comes out when you take psychedelics. And the set and setting is really important to be able to guide that experience because, you know, like people have bad trips. What a bad trip is ultimately like a bad experience, right? Like you're taking the psychedelic journey in your mind, and if externally in your environment things are occurring that can, trigger
Right.
other thoughts or other feelings to come out, you don't know how that's going to come out. And that could be very harmful for certain clients. So that's why it's always recommended that if you're doing psychedelics, like do it in a controlled environment. Don't, do it if you don't feel safe. Don't do it around people you don't still feel safe with. And I know a lot of people do promote psychedelic use like in public venues, events, parties, et cetera, et cetera. But like that's like the worst way to use psychedelics because there's so much other multisensory information that can trigger you and lead you to have um negative emotional experiences. So you could safeguard your psychedelic experience and curate your own experience by creating the set and setting for you to have a safe and pleasant psychedelic experience.
Right. Right.
That's how you maximize on the benefit of it. Or
Right.
you could be taking psychedelics and like harming yourself more.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
there is a method to using it like medicinally, right? To be able to treat yourself.
That they trust. Unfortunately, there's a lot of predators in the industry. We both have experienced predators. So
Yeah, well, I think, and then a lot of those predators are also very mentally ill.
yeah.
Remember, psychedelics and cannabis is an industry that, attracts people that might have not been able to find community elsewhere.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
That's what I find, a lot of uh industry scammers and predators are individuals that um find benefit from
Hmm.
this industry because this industry is very therapeutic for a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a healthcare professional, I have had my own set of drama and traumas. And I've had my own experiential treatment. That was really important for me to be able to understand psychedelics as a treatment provider and understand the effects and what happens to individuals by kind of doing the work myself
Hmm.
and understanding how that work is done. So like part of the integration process, I know you brought this up before, requires that people do work after the psychedelic experience. And some people don't really know how to do that work,
No,
right?
I think people don't. They don't know how to integrate into their life what they just experienced in the psychedelic trip, and
Yeah.
make behavioral changes and how to use that neuroplasticity period to actually, make changes, make better choices for yourself. So they
And
need,
there's a window for that,
right?
right? Like there's a window for that. And that's why like after someone has a psychedelic experience and they're looking to, actually include this as part of like a healing pathway, that's part of the healing pathway. Like it's not just taking psychedelics and, kind of like doing it on your own. It's usually kind of following a structured path to be able to do the work that's necessary for you to, work through your traumas and actually do your healing, right?
Right.
To heal. Um, but going back to scammers and predators, I, found that, industries like it's an emerging industry.
Hmm.
It's also regulated, but not as regulated.
Right. Right.
So that's one of the, I guess, one of the warning signs of this industry is that because it's not as regulated, like, for example, there aren't standards for clinicians, healthcare professionals like you and I
Hmm.
to become psychedelic certified and trained. There's a lot of independent schools, a lot of independent businesses, people kind of just get in where they fit in.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you recommend someone finds, a trustful source that they can sit with, or, do some integration with, or is there somewhere that they can go to look for it? Or you just recommend like searching your network, searching the internet, searching, social content? What do you?
I think that being that there's so many emerging schools, are any of these schools accredited? Like I know that there's institutions that are accredited that are providing psychedelic training.
Hmm. Hmm.
So is this institution accredited? What other type of courses and accreditations do they have? Is that like, because a lot of times like people do want to learn the content, but then if you're getting this education and you can't utilize those continuing education certificates, for example, or the completion of that program
Right.
in your actual practice as a licensed healthcare professional, then you know that's not something that you would want to engage in. Sounds like
Right.
a waste of time and money to me.
Are there like warning signs, red flags you would say that someone should watch out for when they're dealing with somebody, or with a therapist integration, like maybe like a rush to like make a decision, or rush to, get into it or something? Like you said,
Yeah,
not
I
like,
think it's important for everyone to carefully vet
mhm, mhm.
individuals based on their history and do not be scared to run background checks because predators and scammers usually are the ones that are kind of like inflating credentials, inflating connections, inflating successes.
Connection or
So
lied about
kind
you
of
to take advantage.
doing your work, right? Like, hey, like if someone says, hey, like I do this and I've done this,
Mhm.
um, you want to seek out the validity in that. And I think a lot of people in this space are very opportunistic because it's an emerging industry.
Yeah,
But
it's all,
it does draw people because people people from all backgrounds need to heal.
yeah, yeah, but it's also you're in a vulnerable space when you're seeking psychedelic therapy or some sort of treatment. So I think the predators like see that and they kind of take advantage of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of vulnerable people. People are nice. It's not like the finance industry or, the tech industry. I think that, people are generally friendly, connecting through community and a lot of times connecting through, even though we're, functioning professionals, there are opportunities for, people to, connect communally. And
Mhm.
those are usually the times where people have their guard down. They're usually just trying to do their own healing or trying to unwind themselves. Those are the moments where predators scam. It's usually like where they could get you comfortable, where they could identify with you. They want to relate to you on something. They want to connect with you on something. They want to be able to develop some type of emotional connection. If someone offers you a shroom chocolate, you connected with them.
Right. Right.
Be
Yeah.
careful of those people that pass out too many shroom chocolates.
Right. Be careful what you
Just
take.
saying. Exactly. And with that being said, you shouldn't be just taking shroom chocolates or medications or, these type of substances from anybody, right? You don't know where they came from. You don't know where they made it. So you also want to ask questions about things
Yeah.
like that when you're in community and people are sharing new products with you, new things. Being in an emergent industry, like everything is kind of developing. You
Yeah.
see people from all industries. You meet people from all industries.
Right. Right.
I'm a healthcare clinician, but I've met growers, cultivators, manufacturers, chemists, businessmen, I don't know, everything, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I find that I encounter a lot of different products.
Hmm.
Lots of samples are given when you go to these conventions and events, and when you're really just trying to seek out knowledge or seek out community, right? There's always someone there that's kind of lurking. It could be one person, two people, a group of people, just something to be mindful of. There
Yeah.
are people that are always looking to enhance their own selfish motives off of other hardworking individuals. So that could be your hard-earned money, that could be your peace of mind, that could be, that could be your future. So you want to be very careful about kind of, getting into business with the wrong person. Be very careful about signing contracts with people before background checks. No contracts before background checks,
Right. Right.
right? This is like we are still doing professional business, even though we are healers, even though we are we are individuals that often like come in with our own vulnerabilities and our own traumas, right? And we balance that out, with business. We balance our own need for healing and help and community with our entrepreneurial pursuits. So,
Hmm.
making sure when you're handling business, like business is business. And
Yeah.
also be careful who you connect with at a lot of these community circles, at these conventions,
Yes.
at industry events,
Yeah.
because you could be connecting with someone who, has very ill intentions and you would never know because no one with ill intentions presents like that. They're going to present like they're your best friend. They're going to present that they have opportunities for you. They're basically going to feed into your emotional desires in a
Right.
powerful way.
Yes. You have to be careful who you expose your network to as well.
Well, that's the main thing. That's, oh my God, that's like they, predators and scammers are all about like people hopping. Who can I convince? Who can I kind of like, who's gonna believe my stuff? And that, it could be I don't know how they do it. It could be very exhausting for some, but let's just say they work rooms, they want to know everybody, they want to know who's who. And, when you're connecting with new people, remember, like, you don't know who these people are. So you have to vet them. With today's day and age, LinkedIn is a resource, social media is a resource, but then, if someone is saying that they accomplished something, you want to see some proof or evidence of that,
You
right?
should be able. Yeah.
For example, I'm sure like, like you've been in cannabis for years. I'm sure if someone, looked you up, they're able to kind of like, maybe find some stuff,
Right.
about you,
News articles, all kinds of things out there. Yeah.
right? So, if someone, let's just say I'm gonna make up a little hypothetical situation here. Let's just say if someone was suggesting that they own businesses that they didn't own. Maybe it could be psychedelic clinics or dispensaries, right? But let's take away own businesses they don't own. Let's just say someone suggests they own businesses.
Mhm.
Or even if they had a history of owning those businesses, how are you going to validate that?
Well, there's a record. You can check on the state website. Like Florida has Sunbiz, which is the Department of Corporation. So you could easily search that. You could also search, if you know what county they live in, you can search their local clerk of courts and find if they've had any evictions, arrests, any issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So doing your research
Right. And then go
first before
walk
you
up.
before you get too close.
Exactly, exactly. Like married. Or
Yeah.
talk,
Married or even like business partnered
or
or
even exposing them to like your business associates or your network or, you know,
your business plans.
right, right. This is
Your
true.
business plans. Because the thing is, some people don't have the tools, the insight, the guidance, the education, whatever it might be. But
Right.
then they might meet you and you might have these things and you know, you don't want to kind of expose people to what you have going on unless, there is a solid business model between both of you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And let's talk more about what you do for Rolling Stone.
oh, well, so I am a contributor to their leadership council, their
Mhm.
culture council. And in that capacity, I write articles for other people in leadership, people that are interested in maybe following a similar path. But those aren't the only articles that I write about. Um, they're always they're always coming from my area of expertise.
Okay.
So it's basically like my scope of industry experience back to the public, but aimed at people in leadership.
Hmm.
So let's just say it's not for like the general reader. It's usually for entrepreneurs and business owners. My articles are aimed at them.
And
Um,
clinician.
and clinicians, yeah. Clinicians are in leadership.
Yeah.
Um, professionals, um, people that own businesses, anybody in leadership. And the variety of articles that I write is all different. I wrote so many psychedelic related articles about my work, pretty much like giving tools and gems of advice to, how someone can go about, doing similar work or maybe adding advice to certain things that I find what might be helpful. I also have a forensic program, so I write a lot about that. My last article that's going to be published within like the next 2 days or so that I've been working on, it is aimed towards immigrants because there's a big immigration crisis right now.
Right. I wanted
Um,
to talk you're offering special counseling for, but you can
yeah,
finish.
yeah. Well, I started off telling you like I came from immigrants. Like both my parents were immigrants. My dad came to America in 1971. And it's so bizarre because like the way he described it was like, Dad, like you were on the underground like travel plan from India because that's how it was back then. My father's Indian. I'm Indian. So this was a time like directly after the civil rights movement, where, being like, non-white in America wasn't easy and it wasn't attractive. So my dad came to America with a turban and like a full beard, and he was a full Sikh Sardar man. But then through his experiences, issue finding work, prejudice, discrimination. At that time, he changed his look. It was like within a year and a half, he was rocking a curly perm and wearing bell bottoms when he was in India with a turban and a beard. So, my dad went through a similar trajectory that a lot of immigrants go through.
I have so much respect for immigrants.
They
So much.
come to this America and they come to this country and they have to go through a lot. My dad was educated back in India. So when my dad was in India, he completed a master's degree. He got a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. He started teaching. He was like teaching mathematics to middle schoolers. And he did that for like a year. He was a young 20-something-year-old. There was an opportunity for my dad to come to America. America seemed like the promised land, and like go out there, see what you could find. And then my dad was, sent to America on this underground railroad plan with no, like, I'm sorry, underground travel plan. And there was just like no guidance, no direction, no resources. And he had to kind of like figure it out. Like he ended up becoming a laborer because that's what a lot of immigrants do. Like they want to come into the country and they want to work, right?
Yeah,
Want a better life. They don't want to go back home. Going back home is either unsafe, it's either, just like not healthy. There's always reasons why people come here. But then when they come here, they're decades of struggle for an immigrant family to, create their foundation and stabilize. With
absolutely.
the current issues surrounding deportation and the political climate in America, I found it important for me to be at the forefront of the
Mm.
movement to save the good immigrants because there are immigrants that are criminals. And I feel like just like with any criminals, we need to keep them away from doing harm to other people, innocent people.
I agree with that. I feel like it's exploited and overused and overestimated how many are really harming cause.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could hear that perspective too. Like I guess like we really don't know because right now the current immigration climate makes immigrants just look like they're bad people. Like, oh, they're immigrants and Trump said something on the news recently where he said that the constitutional clause that protects immigrants was made for slaves or the children of slaves. And I'm like, well, what about all the Europeans that came here in the 1800s and the 1900s? What about them? Like, it just sounds crazy. Immigrants come from all over. My clients are from all over. I have clients in Europe, clients in Africa, clients in South America, clients in Asia. They're
yeah,
coming from everywhere. It's not like it's just, like one group of people, it's not like it's
targeting more the POCs as opposed to white immigrants who are not being targeted as much as,
right,
people of
right.
color.
Right,
And
right. People of color are definitely being targeted. And because of that, there are a lot of really severe things that are happening in our culture. Immigrants not wanting to go to work because they're scared that they're going to be like collected by ICE, not sending their children to school in fear they'll never see their child again, or they're going to then come after them. Um, and that just creates a ripple effect in our community because immigrants actually like fulfill a lot of essential roles.
do a lot
Um,
of work to taxes and they don't get any benefits. It's,
yeah, they pay so many taxes. Like my dad was saying that to me. My dad, his whole life, he's been in this country for 55 years.
Mhm.
My dad has paid so many taxes, and my dad's just like, these Americans, like they do all type of things. They scam I'm not saying this is actually the case. I'm just saying what an old person said, right? That's been in this country for 55 years. That's reflecting upon, some of his immigration struggles and the fact that he always had to work hard, that he had to spend 20 years as a laborer before he was able to become a professional again. The fact that there were lots of barriers in access to opportunities for him, because of him being an immigrant. And
Later
uh,
in life.
I, I'm a first generation. I grew up in a household full of immigrants.
Right, right.
I grew up in a private house with a fence and a play set in the backyard, a sandbox. I really had a sandbox. I had a playroom in the house with video games and I had Cabbage Patch dolls,
Right. But he
Um,
mentioned that he had you later in life. So that also affected, his and yours, in your
yes,
lives.
yes. And
Yeah.
he had to have me later in life because things were rough for
Yeah.
him. He said the first like his 20s and 30s, he said were really rough. But he uh kind of exemplifies like the common immigration journey. Like you hear immigrants say, "Hey, I come here with a," my dad says, "I came here with $100 in my pocket."
Right. Wow.
They really come here, like, don't come here with much, so they work really hard, and they work in these restaurants that we love eating at, right? They're in the back. They're the ones, washing the dishes. They're the ones cleaning up. They're the ones, kinda doing the dirty work. Um,
Yeah, they're
they're the
like,
ones kind of doing, like, construction, jobs and, custodial jobs and, community jobs that people don't wanna do. So immigrants play a integral role in the society that America is. So because of that, I decided to team up with one of the organizations that I have been trained at for many years now, the Physicians for Human Rights, which is a nonprofit 501(c)(3). They're based in New York. They serve the whole country, and we pretty much serve asylum seekers. But I serve more than just asylum seekers, but through this organization specifically, I've been providing pro bono evaluations for years, and then I have a full practice, a full program in my practice that a comprehensive program that provides psychological intervention for these immigrants that helps them qualify for their green cards. So we're basically like at one time I was like legalizing people's cannabis use. Now
right.
I'm legalizing immigrants citizenship status.
Wow. That's amazing.
And we're doing that through utilizing specific waivers that US immigration offers to specific individuals. So if you came here seeking asylum, I could help. If you came here and you experienced domestic violence, I could help.
Right.
If you came here and you experienced a crime of any kind, I could
Mm,
help. If
right.
you came here and you were human trafficked, I could help.
Oh,
Or if you are close to an American citizen that would suffer, like say your spouse is American citizen, or you have a child that's American citizen or resident, right?
right.
Then I could also help you because there's specific waivers that they can qualify for if they have to have certain evidence, they have to have help, they have to have a healthcare individual pretty much certify them. So what we do is provide a psychological evaluation, which is like 3 to 4 hours long. It's really comprehensive. But during that time, we're asking them questions about their early history. We're asking them questions about their immigration history, what brought them to this country, and then the various aspects of the particular waiver that they're applying for, and then the psychological impact of them not having their legal status and how
Right.
it's affecting them
Wow.
through that report itself, which they tend to be between like 20 and 30 pages. So
Mm,
they're forensic evaluation reports. But that report itself qualifies these immigrants for a legal status for their green card. So right now, it is more important than ever to kind of drive up the initiatives to save people who are scared, who are living every day in fear, who don't want to go to the grocery store. They're constantly looking over their shoulder. Their stress is so high. They're having frequent migraines and headaches. They're developing hypertension, high blood pressure, aside from the depression that's there, the trauma that's there. The anxiety is so bad in some of these individuals that they're turning into from anxiety attacks to panic attacks, which is a more severe form of anxiety. So it's so bad out here for many immigrants. And my agency has developed a immigration help drive so that we can help people. Um,
amazing.
and one of my hopes is that once we can engage them and get them legal,
Mm,
then we could also bring them back to a place where they're able to treat themselves with natural plant medicines once again.
right. Right.
Because
Right. Because it comes from their
from
culture.
other countries, a lot of other cultures incorporate a lot of these medicines
Their
into their spiritual practices.
Mhm, mhm.
I'm gonna give you an example on how my culture uses cannabis spiritually.
Okay.
So I come from a Sikh culture. So Sikh is a culture that is birthed out of North India, I'm sorry. And my family is Punjabi. So the Sikhs are considered the warriors of India. They were the
Seeks.
ones that developed an army that kind of like fought against keeping India and not converting into like an Islamic country.
Right.
Long history there. That's a whole other combo. With that being said, historically, Sikhs used a substance called bhang. And bhang is basically like a cannabis milk. Like it's pretty much like they strain and cook the cannabis into like a milk.
Huh?
And so like the milk becomes like green.
Kind of like a hemp milk, or it was green. That's
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like, with all the psychoactive substances in it, right? They, create this milk and then they all like in a ceremonial setting,
right.
right? Will pass around the bung and then drink the bung.
Wow.
What they felt like the bung was doing was giving them resilience and strength to be able to confront the war that they were about to enter. So before wartime, before they were like, all right, it's a battle, like I'm just kind of going back to like, that era, right? 1400 maybe, right? So like we're 1400 and we're like, we're Indians and we're fighting the Muslims, right? We're about to walk down that hill and like fight. I don't know, right? But before that time, that's where the ritual occurred.
Okay.
And the
In-
purpose of the ritual was to be able to kind of create inner strength.
Right.
So, as cannabis is used today to promote somatic or emotional releases, it was very much used in that context spiritually.
Wow. Wow.
Um, and in many regards, like I just never like known cannabis to be something that like in India people use like that because it's free and it grows everywhere. Like people laugh at people from around the world and they don't understand the science of genetics, right? Like that weed isn't the weed that we're using,
Is
right?
it sugar or do you
It's
know?
like veggie. I mean,
Is what-
right. It's just very like non-psychoactive
okay.
weed.
Like
Or very low psychoactive, well, low THC, right? So like the original THC strains, maybe were like 2 to 4% THC,
right.
right? They're not like 22%, 20%, 28%, 31. We're like, whoa, I'm gonna get so high, right? No, it's nothing like that. It's
Right.
actually just low THC, very, very low dose THC that's just grown commonly.
Right. Right.
Like I really believe, and I don't have any historical context around this to back this up, but like who created the word, like who started calling cannabis weed and when did that start happening? Because in India, it like literally grows like it's weeds.
That's interesting. What is it called over there? Do you know?
Ganja,
Oh, ganja. Right. Right.
ganja. Yeah. And ganja grows everywhere.
Oh, I would love to see that.
So, and they use ganja like in the Himalayas, right? So in the Himalayas, a lot of those practitioners that go to the Himalayas and, facilitate their own like, healing camps and retreats and healing spaces, right? They use cannabis in the context of healing. And
Amazing.
it's mostly for spiritual growth.
Mhm.
And in other countries, like when you go to South America, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, when you go to South America, other substances are more prevalent, right? Like, you'll go in the Amazons of somewhere in Brazil, and you'll, see that they have the
Ayahuasca. Right.
right, the ayahuasca, right? And then, like I said, across the world, people use these substances in different ways.
I have about 15 minutes left before I have another call.
All right.
Sorry.
Well,
Oh, you there?
so we're just having such a great
Yeah.
conversation.
Absolutely. I love
So,
the conversation.
um,
Appreciate all the insight, and wow, it's just incredible. And I appreciate all the work that you do. I want to say that you're going to be at Psychana Summit DC.
yes, I will be at Psycana. I really look forward to the opportunity to engage individuals there. I will have like a because Rolling Stone is going to participate in some of the sponsorship, we're gonna just have a step and repeat, and I'm gonna give opportunities for individuals that are attending the conference to come and share a little bit about their business.
Mhm. That's going to
Um,
be the
so say it again, I'm sorry.
VIP section.
In the VIP section, yes. So make sure you get your VIP tickets to Psychana so you could hang out in the Rolling Stone Lounge. But Rolling Stone is facilitating a special lounge at Psychana, and
So panel.
yeah, so there will also be an integration panel. And I find that the integration panel will be a perfect opportunity for people to come and understand what integration looks like, right? So I had the psychedelic experience. Now what? And the
Right.
now what always depends on various factors. The action that someone takes behind or following a psychedelic experience is going to dictate how profound that experience is.
Right. Right.
So, um,
With
I
the
look
neuro.
forward to, yeah, I look forward to having that conversation. And then also hosting a special event alongside you. And I know some of your very esteemed colleagues, so that, we could put together something very, very special so we could introduce some of these methods in a legal capacity, but also in a microdose capacity, right? It is going to be a very harm reduction protocol event, but
Right.
the focus of the interventions, and uh, some of the offerings that I will provide that day are going to be centered around finding a safe space to be
Hmm.
able to do specific healing. And I just look forward to having the opportunity to do this in DC, to talk
Yeah.
about alternative medicines, to talk about how the everyday person that's coping and struggling with trauma can find an alternative pathway by engaging in some legal alternative therapy and what
Right.
that might look like, and maybe giving them a little experience so that maybe they could anticipate what a more profound experience would look like.
Right. DC is so unique because they offer gifting of entheogenic plants and fungi. So it's really an interesting experience. Exploring the
It's a
idea.
really great opportunity for us to connect with people and um you know give them life-changing experiences.
Yeah, I'm exploring the idea of doing some, because in the morning we're gonna have some activations in the speaking hall. So I'm exploring the possibility of doing some microdosing sessions.
I
Super.
love that. I love that. One
Yeah.
thing about your events, Colleen, is that you offer immersive modalities. And I found that those immersive experiences, like it's very uncommon that you go to like a large psychedelic convention and they're offering immersive psychedelic experiences.
Right. For example, we had a person acupuncture session with sound bathing at the same time. It was so incredible. Doctors Jonathan and Lauren Fields did that one in Miami. Amazing. But with stuff like that is what we're gonna
Oh,
do.
I wish I was there. And I look forward to you bringing a lot of different therapies
Yeah.
to Psychana, because I could imagine, Psychana is a space for people to come, learn, grow, and connect with plant medicines.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it in the state's capital. So the possibilities are really endless. And I look forward to being there and sharing what I can. Um, uh,
Well,
and it was such a pleasure having this conversation. Like, I didn't think I was going to be able to keep on talking and talking. I was like, oh, it's been a few weeks since I've done a podcast. So, so I was like, wow, but we spoke about so much.
it's like second nature. It's what we do every day. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And
so
I
much.
really appreciate the work that you do. I think honestly, Psychana is the future.
Yeah, yeah. No more Canadelic. I'm not involved in that anymore, but Psychana is my new project, and we're going to DC, the nation's capital. I'm calling all industry leaders to converge on the.
Psychana is better. Psychana just sounds so much more healthcare focused and mental health focused.
Yeah,
Right? Because it's like psych from psychedelics, but psych from psychology, right? There's a lot when we use psychedelics, we're tapping into our psychology.
right.
So I love the psych part of, the name of your business. And I love the direction that this is going in. And I love being a part of something that is so groundbreaking and so legendary. So I just look forward to helping so many people and hopefully touching a lot of lives when we meet at the conference.
Awesome. Well, it's May 24th and 25th, which is Memorial Day weekend. And you can go to Psychana, that's PSYCHANA.com for more information. Thank you so much. I'm honored to have you on here. Thank you. I appreciate you came on and gave us your time.
Yay. So another way to find me, the Happy Therapist. The Happy Therapist on all platforms. Um, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, rollingstone.com/author/Sonia, Sonia dash Singh, Singh. And then my website is Coit Health. It's CoitheAlth. Quick links to all of my pages, all of my content that I create for leaders in psychedelics.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And thank you all for watching.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.